Hello everyone, welcome to next training session tutorial video, and in this session we are going to have a look at API testing. I had already created API testing tutorial 1 and 2, and this is the third tutorial in this series. It has taken me about 5 to 6 years to update this, and many things have changed since then. So let's see what we are going to have a look at in this series. Uh, in this series, we would learn testing RESTful services using REST Assured, which is an API which we are going to try today and in the future as well. But before that, if you are new to API testing, if you do not know what is API testing, what are RESTful services, what is service-oriented architecture, then I would suggest you to try my first two training session videos, which I'm going to link on the description of this video. So you could first see them and then you come here. So you have an understanding of what API testing is before we start writing API test or more and more API test. So what else are we going to see in this series? We would see how we are going to use REST Assured. There are there is one dependency which we need to use, which is a Maven dependency. I have already added this on testing project, which we have been using for long time. And I'm going to show it to you. Let me open the pom.xml file, and I have enabled the presentation assistant mode, so you can see the commands which I'm using, all the shortcuts at the bottom of my screen. So on the pom.xml file, I have REST Assured somewhere. Let me search REST Assured. It's right here. So I have version 4.3.3, which I have added as Maven dependency. Now what this does is this brings in the REST Assured API. Along with this, it also gets JSON path and XML path, which are the APIs to pass JSON and XML documents. We are not going to have a look at SOAP-based API or RESTful services which have responses in form of XML. We will focus on JSON. And the application which we are going to use for testing is request, or I don't know how to pronounce it, and this API is this is publicly available API which can be used for testing as far as I could find out from Google. So we would do some functional testing on this API, and we would see get operation today. We would see how we can set base URI. We would see Gherkin syntax, some data driven test with query and path parameters. We would also see curly bracket notation, and in the end we will see passing parameters between test using exact method. As always, I'm going to commit all of this piece of code to my GitHub repo, which I'm going to link on the description of this video, so you can try it out yourself too. So let's get started. I have created a new class to deal with the testing RESTful API, and this is REST API test. And what we have here is we have a set of methods. So in the REST API, the base class is REST Assured, and it has many other APIs to use, and one of them is base URI, which is the, well, you may have guessed, this is the base URI, which is going to be the basis of any other API call. And this base URI is https://req.res.in, and we would keep appending more path and parameters to this URI to build more. So once we have set up the base URI, we don't have to specify this again and again. We can just specify the remaining portion of the API. Now I have another method here called getResponse, which we will see in a while. I'm not using this API. I'm going to remove this, and then let's see our first test. So our first test is to print the API response, and API is API/user page equal to 2. Let's see this API first. So this API is right here. If I open this in new tab, you can see that what this API does is it lists a couple of users on the page number 2, which have email, first name, last name, and user avatar, and we have total 6 users being listed here. So if I call this API through REST Assured, we should get the same outcome. So how do we do that? In this print response method, what we do is we start calling getResponse, which I have declared here, which is very simple. What it does is it invokes REST Assured API call get, which takes API as the parameter. So the API parameter what we are passing here is /API// slash sorry slash users question mark page equal to 2, which is a fragment of URI if you notice it closely. So whole of the URI is formed using base URI plus this URI, and since we have decided or specified the base URI right here, we don't have to specify it again and again. Rest assured will take care of this and append this remaining URI part at the end of the base URI, and then we can call the method get body to get the body of the get request, and then we use pretty print to, well, to print it in a pretty format. So JSON is not sort of unformatted, which cannot be comprehended by looking at the screen. Now let me run this method and we will see the response which we see here from the API call would also be printed on my console. So the test method is successful. Actually, there's no assertion, nothing is happening here, not a real test. We are just printing the response. And this is the response you can see here. It says, total pages are 2. We have total 12 data sets, and data set number 7 begins here, which is same here as well. Michael Lawson and Avatar till ID 12, and in the end we have support URL text, which is also listed here. So this was about printing the response of the API. Now let's start doing some test. Let's see how we can use the Gherkin syntax on rest assured. So I have another test here called validate get request, and here what I'm doing is I'm calling a method called given on the rest assured. So we can follow something called given when then syntax, which we are pretty used to from behavioral driven development or PDD. So what given does is given is going to start building the request for us, and the specification here is going to be, for example, the base URI. And following given we have when, if you see here, when doesn't do anything new. This is syntactic sugar, and these are the sort of method which make the flow easy to understand, but they in turn themselves do not carry out any operation. So if you see, there is no method body here, and it returns the request specification itself, which if I go here, so we have request specification returned from given, and there is no change happening here from the when method, which is syntactic sugar, and we get the request specification again here. And then we have one important operation on when, which is get API, wherein we are calling the API which we want to subject to testing. So we saw this before, API slash tell page equal to 2. And then we have then is one more operation on the validatable difficult to pronounce interface. Now how we are able to invoke this is, so what get does us, it gets us response, and on the response we are invoking the then. So let's see some implementation of then. Okay, so we have something called rest assured response IMPL implementation, which implements this. So runtime, this is the implementation which would be called, and after then what we can do is we can start assertion. So we do assert that. Now this is another syntactic sugar, so this is not going to really carry out any operation. It just makes it easy to understand that once we get the response, then we are doing assertion. And what are we asserting here? We are asserting that status code should be HTTP. Okay, this is just a constant for 200. You can also type here 200 and that would also do, but instead of hard coding numbers like 200, let's use constants. So this constant is from HTTP URL connection, and what this API would do, it would invoke API which ends with page equal to 2, and then it will assert that we get 200. Okay, let's run it. Yes, so the request is successful, and we are not printing nothing here, so we don't see any outcome here, but we can verify that it really works by changing the HTTP response code here. So let's go here. On the second call, I would comment the first one now. Yes, so what we are doing in the second one, we have just changed the HTTP check on status code from 200 to bad request, and we know that it should be 200, so bad request is 400, and this is going to fail. But let's see how the failure looks like. So let me run it. So our test method has failed right now, and we can see the error here. It says expected 400 but was 200. It's just an error simulation. Okay, let's see the next set of statements. Now what we can also do is we can also verify the elements in the JSON, and we don't have to limit ourselves to verifying just the status code. And this is what you would be doing in your test. You would parse the JSON files and verify different elements, whether they are valid or not. So what I have done here is, after given when, get, then assert that, I'm verifying that the body contains an element called total pages and its value is 2. If we see the API call request here, the response here, we see the total page element has value 2. So if this works, the test run should be green. So let me run this test, which does assertion on the body element total pages. So this is green again. Again, nothing is printed because there's no exception and we are not logging anything. We would see logging also in one different training session, and we would see how we can log important messages. Now let's see next set of statement. Next set of statement is also similar to the previous one. We are again doing an assertion here on the body element, but what we have done here is we have changed the total pages to 100 here. I did not specify how body method works. Body method is, there are multiple implementation here. So if I do this, okay, let me go to the definition here. So you have body here, and yeah, body here. So there are multiple implementation of this API. This method is overloaded, and the one which I'm using here is takes a string, which is a path here, which is the element, for example, total pages here, and the matcher. Matcher is an API from Hamcrest, which is used for assertion, and this provides human readable assertions, which is why we see things like equal to or assert that and so on. I can remove the core matchers here, which is invoking the static method equals to, so this makes it more fluent. So it could be read as body having total pages equal to 100. We know this is wrong because equal to should be 2. So if I run this, we should get a failure. Yep, so this fails now, and the error message is that JSON path total page does not match. We expected 100, but it is 2. Just a simulation of error. Okay. Now what I do at work is I do not specify it like, rest assured with or rest assured given and then and all. I just cut it short and specify what is necessary. So I remove syntactic sugar. So what I usually do is I specify as rest assured dot get, or rest assured rest assured dot get, then body and what is to be uh, tested. So this set of line is more or less same as this set of line, just that there is lots of syntactic sugar in this and there's no syntactic sugar in this set of lines. If I execute this, it should be green too, and again there's no printing or no logging happening here. Now let's see the next set of statement, which is multiple checks. Yes, so you would also have the facility to not just check thing once, like just doing then body and done with the test. You could also check multiple parameters at once. So what is happening in the next API call is we do a get, then we verify status code. If it is okay, then we also verify that content type should be JSON, and we also verify that header connection should be keep alive. If I run this would also be green. You see, let us run this with a failure. Let's change content type from JSON to something which is not expected, for example XML. So it fails now, and it says that one expectation failed, which is XML does not match what the content type should be. We can also make more than one failure. If I change this to HTTP bad gateway, then we should see another failure. Yes, so the failure we have here is that, it expected to get 5 or 2, which is an error simulation, but it was 200, and then it did not run other set of checks, which makes sense. Okay, let me bring it back to how it was. Yep. So these were a couple of examples of validating get request, validating the status code, validating some of the element from the body API, and then also validating multiple statements on one query parameter. Let's not call it query parameter, let's call it on one set of API call statement, because we are going to have a look at query parameter next. So this is our next method wherein we see something called query parameter. But before that, let's understand what is the query parameter. Query parameter is, well, it's quite obvious, it is query parameter. And how it is denoted in API call is, for example, in request slash API slash users question mark page equal to 2, the part which appears after the question mark is, and this is the part which is the query parameter. So herein we have query parameter as page, which is the name of the query parameter, and the value is 2. And this query parameter can take whichever is the valid value, which returns some valid JSON response in our case. What I have done in test with query parameter is I have specified the parameter using a different API call here. So what we are doing here is we say given parameter, which is the query parameter. Now we specify the name of the parameter, and then this is the query parameter. This we are reading from a different data provider, which we will have a look at. And then we say, okay, get me the response from the API call. But now here we have a specified API call only till slash API slash user. Unlike previously when we were also specifying the query parameter, we don't specify the query parameter here because we are passing the param value here. So this would be added to the GET request. And then what we do is we verify that data.email.0 should be equal to some expected response, which we would see in a while. Now, this method called test run with query parameter is annotated with data provider, testng data provider. And we know from the definition of testng, well, by the way, if you're new to Java and testng, then please don't start here. You should start on Java tutorial. I'm also going to link them to the description of this video. Now, coming back to the data provider, from the definition of testng, data provider is another method. Its name, for example, I have named it as query parameter, which returns two-dimensional object array. So its return type is two-dimensional object array. And what I have done here is I have initialized this two-dimensional object array. So it's one of the value in this two-dimensional object array is 1, followed by some email address, and then I have another value called 2 followed by some email address. But let's see how these values are gathered. So when our test method calls the query parameter, it gets values from this two-dimensional object array, and then control goes here, and these are the parameters which we collect here. So one is the query parameter, which are 1 or 2, and another is the expected response. Now let us see what validation we are really doing here. So after then we have a body call wherein we have the path data.email 0, and if we see this call, yes, so data.email 0 means 0th email, which is right over here. So this is Michael Lawson at domain.in. And if I go back to the query parameter, this is the same thing which I would specify on the object initialization. So I have taken two values here, 1 and 2. So if I change the page to 1 here, in case of 1, I have taken the email address as George Bluth, and if you see here, this is the email address called George Bluth. And on the value 2, I have taken the email address as Michael Lawson, and this is the second API call which we will be making as page equal to 2. So 2 is the value which we have here, and if I execute this, yeah, we'll get the Michael Lawson here using data.email 0th, so as in the first value on the API call. Let us run it in debug mode and analyze it. So in case of parameter, we have the query parameter being passed, which is 1. So what this means is that we are passing page value as page, like here, page equal to 1. So this will be appended here, page question mark page equal to 1. And in case of page equal to 1, we are expecting that data.email.0, that is first email address should be equal to which email address? George Bluth. So in case of first page, we are expecting first email address as George Bluth, and this is what we saw here should be there. First page email address is George Bluth. So this is our equal to, as in the assertion parameter here using the matcher. So if this works, then we should have a green here. And yep, so first run was green using first and George Bluth, and then control comes to the second run, and then here again we have query parameter as 2 and expected response as Michael Lawson. So let's change the query parameter to 2 here, and the first email here is Michael Lawson, and this should also succeed. So let me continue this run as well. So you see both runs were successful. Let us make it fail and see how this goes. So what we would do here is, instead of passing right response, let's pass some wrong response. Let's hardcode something and let's run it again, but this time I'm not going to debug it. Okay, both of the runs fail, which was obvious. And the first one says that value doesn't match. It was expecting test.test.com, but it found George Bluth. And in case of second one, it was expecting again test.com, but found Michael Lawson. So this is how it would report the test results, and it would be very, very clear, on what data sets tests are failing. Okay, let me bring the right values back. So this was about testing with the query parameter. Now let's see something with testing using path parameters. What is a path parameter? So in the API call, for example, API slash user question mark page 2, the portion which we see after slash and before question mark, this is the path parameter. So here users is the path parameter, and like the parameter which we specified here, we can also specify the path parameter. How we do that? Well, let's first specify the path parameter here, which is users parameter, which we know is users, and then we start building the API call using given, and instead of param, which we specified earlier, in case of path parameter, we specify path param, and then we specify the name of the path parameter and the value. So the name is the users, and well, we also know the value is also users. This may take different values, and we can concatenate different path parameters. If I go here, I can do another path parameter, and and we can also do the data-driven test on using path parameter like we did with the query parameter. And now how do we direct our test to use, that this is the path parameter? We just use the curly bracket notation here and specify the name here. Let me change this to something else. This makes it a bit difficult to understand. Let's name it as path parameter, and we say here, this is my path parameter, and we take page equal to 2, and then we can do whatever assertion we want. What I'm doing here is I'm asserting on the status code like we were doing before. So let me run this. And it is green. So we saw the query parameter and we saw the path parameter, and now we move on to seeing how we can pass parameters between tests. At times what you would do is you would extract parameter from one API call, and then you would like to pass the parameter to a different API call, and this is what we are going to do here is. So what I have done here is I again do the get call on the API which we have been seeing for quite some time now. Then we use something called extract to extract the value. And what value we want to extract? We want to extract the value called total. Let's see what is the total here, and we see the total is 12. So what I'm doing here is I'm extracting the value 12 from the API call, and this is stored in an integer. Later on the same test, what I do is I use this total. How I use this total? I pass this total as path parameter here. So I say path total, And here users slash another curly bracket notation, and I pass total here. So what this would do is this would get me the user whichever number I specify. For example, I can copy this and I can go to the API call here. I need to remove this, and we know that the value will be total. So if I hit total here, we would get the user with the first name Rachel. So we can do some validation here on whichever user number which we are getting has got the right value or not. So what we do here then, and then body, we find out the first name. How do we do that? We know that first name, well, it's not independent, it's within data. So we reach first name as data.firstname. So data.firstname, and this should be equal to Rachel. Simple, isn't it? Once again, what we do, first we extract the value of a specific path, which is total here, and this is going to get us 12, and then we pass on this path value which we have got, which is total here, to a different query using the curly notation, and then we are carrying out assertion on something called data.firstname. Let me run it in debug mode. Okay, so you see here the total is 12, and then we have control on assertion. I'll continue this run, and it was also successful. So we saw quite a few things in this small but not so well not so unimportant class. I would say we saw how we can do simple calls to an API, which are the get calls. We verified the status code HTTP okay, and so we also saw what happens if a status code is not right, or if we have a failure, then how results are displayed on console or the test report. We also found out how we can specify the query parameters, and we did a small data-driven test on query parameter. We also verified how we can specify path parameter, and in the end we had a look at how we can extract value from one query and pass on to another query. Did we miss anything? No, most of these APIs are from Rest Assured Wiki. This is the wiki on the basis of which I'm building this set of series. So you can also have a look at this for future references. And this is all for this session. And if you enjoyed this session, then please hit like button. See you next time. Bye bye.